Welcome to episode 287 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. My guest in this episode is Sid Hart. Sid Hart is the Managing Director at APP, the Asia Pacific Post Cooperative. We're going to talk a bit about the work of the APP, as well as some of the services as well that it's offering outside its own network for the first time. So, Sid Hart, Managing Director at the APP Cooperative. Joining me on the line is Sid Hart. Sid is a CEO at APP. Now, Sid, we're going to get into some meaty stuff later on, but first of all, why don't you just share with us a little bit about what the APP is, what it does, and who its members are?
Yeah, hi Ian. Thanks. APP is it's a postal cooperative. We're based in Asia, given away in the name, I suppose, the Asia Pacific Post Cooperative. And it's been around for about 30 years now, coming up to its 30th birthday, and consists of 28 postal members from across Asia and the Pacific. So we span from as far west as Iran to as far east as Fiji, Vanuatu, and Solomon Islands. So a pretty large geographical cover, and as I say, 28 posts within that reach. Most of the big, small, and in between posts across the region. Pretty diverse in terms of membership, as you can imagine. Across that geographical stretch, we've a good mix of very well developed posts through to the ones that are not so well developed, and we exist to provide commercially focused solutions for those posts across the breadth of that diversity. So we do that in a few different ways, but at its core, we're there to represent and promote those members, the cooperative, our industry as a whole, and what we're here for. And the great thing about the staff at the cooperative is we're all postal evangelists. So yeah, we recognise that the postal industry needs to change and it needs to modernise. We also recognise that we're no longer in reality organisations who deliver letters and a few parcels. We're the exact opposite. We're now effectively, and this is true for almost all of our posts, we're parcel carriers who happen to also deliver letters. And we derive the great chunk of our revenue mainly from that segment, the parcels. So as a cooperative, our role as staff, as the facilitators for the cooperative, I suppose, is to help the posts with that transition, both whether that be digital or operational, but always with a commercial focus. So, as I said before, we do that by representing the industry and by representing our members most keenly. We do that by helping them to better meet those changing customer needs and expectations. And we do it by encouraging conversation and promoting those common interests that are regardless of the level of development, are actually across all of our members on the whole. We do it in different ways. So, some of that is purely by discussion groups and by looking at how, as a group, we can come together to learn from one another. Some of it is in the sense of leadership. So we'll take the initiative for those members and come up with solutions and different options to help them achieve and to change. And some of it's purely on a commercial basis, which means that we create products, we create services that are designed to help them change. Some of the things that we've been doing most recently is about changing the way the cooperative delivers that work. So in the past, it's a fantastic organisation, but after 30 years, everything needs to change. So in the past, we tended to try to do solutions that were a one-size-fits-all. Given that we have a limited budget and quite a number of members, it certainly makes sense on paper. But the truth is, what's good for the Pacific Islands is not necessarily what's good for the ASEAN members. What's good for them isn't necessarily great for our Antipodean members, and with them, it's not necessarily what's good for the guys over in the western edge of Asia, or even in the northern edge. So we've kind of, whilst maintaining a group cooperative, we've started to segment that a little bit so that we can direct the work that we do on behalf of the members in a way that is more appropriate for their natural groupings. So recently we've launched the Pacific Islands Postal Forum, which is really designed for those small Pacific Island states who have real challenges in terms of getting things to and from, in terms of the size of their economies, and therefore the commerciality that can be in play for them, their development statuses. It's for them to really focus on how we can start to improve the commercial situation for them, and for us to help them focus on the big topics of the day. So, a lot, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later, but sustainability comes into that, questions on how we do inter-island business and make that easier for them, but also how they're better at reaching out to the wider world and how the wider world can better engage with them. So that's a forum that's specifically designed for the small island states of the Pacific, but does include Australia and New Zealand as key supporters of those islands. And because we're a small team with a small budget, it's always member-led. So everything we do is with them at heart.
Talking about this geographic diversity of your membership, and you sort of touched on this before, how there's all these differing needs. Are you organised in how are you organised internally? I suppose is my question. Can you get groups of posts talking to each other about their commonalities in one sense, and then in a separate sense, talking more broadly across the entire APP network?
Yeah, look, there's always a bit of a strange contradiction amongst doing these things. We're a cooperative of posts. By being a member, you're kind of agreeing that you are going to share information as broadly across that membership as possible. Some of our posts are also members of other cooperatives, and so you do get a slight risk of competition and a risk of giving away too much information. But that's actually where the APP, I think, has some of its strongest points. It is almost a family. And we're all in it for the same reasons. We all pull in the same direction. So one of the reasons we've split that into those smaller geographical groups is that there are some things that are just not relevant outside of a geography rather than in a larger group. And there are commonalities across those. But we come together regularly as a full 28 members organisation. And one of the really good examples of that is our e-packet service, which is a commercial solution for small, lightweight, low-cost tracked items across the region. The members designed that. They work together as a family. Not every single one of the cooperative members is an e-packet member, but they all have an intention to join at some point. But what they do is they share what would in other worlds be commercially sensitive information and best practice to make sure that they all benefit. And one of the big messages from us to the members is you're not actually competitors. Posts do compete with one another, and they do, especially with ETOEs and things like that, they do have presence on each other's doorstep. But the truth is that that's a real small part of their competitive landscape. It's certainly not the most important part of that competitive landscape. They're all commonly fighting against the big integrators, the DHLs, FedExes, UPSs of the world. But nowadays, even they're not the ones we're worried about. The ones that as a group we're worried about are the new, more technically enabled competition, the JTEs of the world, who come in from a technology-first perspective, who have really low institutional costs and therefore don't have to compete on the same level playing field that our posts do, and approach it from effectively a buying the market perspective first, where our posts can't do that. So the benefit of having the cooperative there is, there's loads of benefits, but one of those is that we help them to realize that actually by working together they've got more opportunity rather than seeing each other as competitors. But to be fair, that is one of the great things about our industry.
Now, you just mentioned e-packet in all of that, Sid. And so tell us a bit more about what this is, how it started and what direction it's heading now.
Yeah, e-packet is undoubtedly the biggest success of the cooperative from its foundation to today, and it's only been around for 5 or 6 years. So it was formed really as an answer to the fact that our posts, certainly, who are on the whole the largest outputting posts for e-commerce materials, were starting to see that they were losing the bottom end of the market, the lightweight, low-cost stuff, which is actually where most of them make most of their money. It's higher volume, easy to fulfill, quite easy to even go out with a traditional postie, so you don't need new infrastructure for it. So it's formed, I think 2016 was the year that it came into being, and it is an agreement between a number of posts, 25 posts now, to transact up to 5 kilo items. Most are only currently doing 2 kilos, but up to 5 kilos is the allowance on a tracked basis, low cost across our region. And it started with, I think, 15 posts in the beginning, like I say, now 20 posts, and has been a rip-roaring success. The quality of service in the product is pretty good. It's on par with international standards now. COVID's had an impact like it has on everything, but actually what we've seen is it had an upward impact on volume and a stabilising impact on our quality across the board. We will, like everyone, see probably a 30% reduction in that volume this year. And I'm forecasting it will be a bit harder on ePacket actually than on most products, primarily because, again, we're at that bottom end of the weight range, and that's where most of the volume lies. So it has a chance of impacting there stronger than it would for most, but we're in line with what we're seeing across the industry, so I'm reasonably comfortable at this point. The premise of the product is really simple. Posts working together to make sure that items are transacted in a way that customers want. So it's lightweight, low cost, tracked. Simple as that. Up until this year, it's been a intra-Asia product only, and really successful on that basis, somewhere in the regions of 25 million items a year, which isn't bad for a regional product. But we have now opened it up to the wider world, and we've got, our first external post has joined, and that's PostNL. And we've now got conversations in play with, I think, 15, 16 other worldwide posts. I suppose that the message would be ePacket is open for business. And the office here administers that on behalf of the members. So we have a head of product, Rebecca Savage, who works for us here in Singapore. And it is the major focus of the cooperative.
We sort of touched on sustainability very briefly before. And in our conversations, you've mentioned that sustainability is very much front of mind for some of your members. Can you share a bit about what the APP is doing, what its members are, sort of how the members are thinking about sustainability or indeed climate change, and what it means for their operations and even their survival?
Yeah, I mean, sustainability it's high on the agenda for everyone at the moment, but we have to accept that our region covers some of the countries that are going to be hardest hit by climate change quickest, whether that be because they're low-lying island states or that they're countries that historically have had some of the largest output of polluting gases, or even that we in the West choose to use them as our recycling facilities. They do get most keenly hit. And the truth is that those countries that are in the developmental stages will always be the ones that suffer most. And you only have to look at some of our countries to see what's happening. We've got members like the Maldives who are in danger of losing islands to rising sea levels. Indonesia, who are one of the most populous countries in the world, seeing their own capital city sinking. That there are all sorts of tangible impacts that we can see at this point in time. But that diversity that I talked about earlier also means that our members are in various states of ability in terms of being able to make changes to what they do to have a positive impact. So we've got members such as Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some in that do have heads of sustainability in place and are actively trying to change what they do. But we've got members who either, for various reasons, haven't yet engaged with it or haven't been able to, simply don't have the finances to do it. And so our job as a cooperative is to find a way of enabling them to engage and make tangible change on their terms in a way that's right for them, but with group support. So a bit like the geographically focused forums, we've founded the APP Sustainability Forum. We've had the first few informal meetings of that. It kicks off in good form next year. And that really is aimed at, I suppose it's a sort of a self-help group is the way that I like to think about it. It's that best practice sharing and group commitments to change. But when we say group commitments to change, we're not all saying we're going to sign up to a 30% reduction in carbon emissions. The truth is we couldn't do that if we wanted to. But we will all sign up to something, and we will support each other as a group to achieve the level that we choose as an individual post. So some of the ways that the cooperative is supporting that, I said we have some members who simply don't have the finance to have sustainability-focused people on their payroll, for example. Well, the cooperative will act as that intermediary on that basis. We will be your sustainability head. We will help you to look at what you can deliver and how you work within the framework of the UN's SDGs. We've, as a cooperative, committed to 9 of those SDGs. Again, not necessarily appropriate for all of our members to be committed to all 9, but we as an office, as an organisation, can. And those are the 9 that we've asked our members to consider. So there's no obligation to join any one in particular. There are some that make sense, carbon reduction being one of them, the circular economy being another. Those are things we can, even at a low level, have a tangible impact on. So there's some initiatives going on in that. One of those is a really simple one, just returning the mail bags that we use as an industry. Hundreds of thousands of those are used every single year. They tend to be made of plastic these days. Gone are the days of beautiful fabric bags. And unfortunately, a good number of those end up in landfill or used as rubbish bags or whatever else. Because whilst we have the right as posts to request that they're returned to us, on the whole, we don't. And that is, it's a real simple thing that we can do. The freight is coming back to you from that country anyway, because hopefully you've got inter-country transfers of mails, and therefore you can have your own bags returned. You could even just ask the sending country to use your bags to send any volume to you. And that would be a really simple way of reducing our impact on the environment really very quickly. With a number of posts who are working towards electrification of fleets, and we're currently in the process as an office of helping a number of posts that don't have the finances to do that, to look at how they might use their quality of service funds when they're applying to use those for infrastructure to put in place green options rather than petrol and diesel based transportation. So there's loads we can do on the subject. I'm really grateful that our colleagues over at Singapore Post have chosen to chair the Sustainability Forum for this year. It's particularly important. It is one of those posts that has a sustainability head in place because they can lead by example. But like everything, it's for the members, by the members. So the work that is done, yes, we'll facilitate it. Yes, we'll even lead on the ideas. But the work that that is done in that forum will be entirely what the members have asked for and delivered in a way that they can consume.
So tell me how you're organised geographically, Sid. You mentioned earlier about the other forum that you've got running. So are there individual geographic forums within the APP?
Yeah, well, there will. I suppose the answer is there will be. We're in the process of formulating those, but they're really very simple in terms of how we go about that. We look at what the commonality is amongst the members. So there's an existing ASEAN forum of which the APP supports, but it's not actually part of us. That was set up separately some time ago. So that's those 10 ASEAN countries. As I said, there's the Pacific Islands Forum that's just kicked off. There's going to be a West Asia Forum soon. Name's still in flux, but broadly those countries that I suppose we'd all recognise as being in the Indian subcontinent group of countries. So Sri Lanka, Maldives, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan and Nepal will fall into that. Some question as to whether some of the slightly more Western, Iran and Afghanistan, may join that group as well. The good thing with the forums is actually that whilst they do have a broad geographical or subject-based application, they're always an open forum. So you just need to be a stakeholder with an interest in that particular subject or area. You don't even need to be an APP member. You can join. We encourage outside hosts and outside stakeholders to join, because the power of them is by having the most number of voices there.
Sid, if people want to find out more about the APP and its work, what should they do? Where should they go?
So come to the website, app.coop. That website is in the process of being redeveloped, so keep an eye on it. There'll be a brand new one there within a couple of weeks. But the website has got everything. And of course, reach out to me on various social media channels. And for those that have got my contact details directly, I'm always happy to answer questions.
Sid Hart, Managing Director at APP, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you very much.
Coming soon on the Postal Hub podcast. Anne Snitko returns from Omnic to talk about parcel lockers, parcel locker networks, parcel locker cooperation. Really interesting discussion. Make sure you catch that one. And what's a great way to do that? Well, you can subscribe to the podcast on your favourite podcast platform, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, etc., etc. Or you can also subscribe to our email newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com and look for the email newsletter there. You'll also find the Daily Delivery Digest. Sign up for everything. Just go over there, sign up. It's all free. It's all great. And you'll get an email from me every time I release a new episode of the Postal Hub podcast. If you're on LinkedIn, remember you can follow me on LinkedIn, and you never know what I'm going to post over there. I actually probably guess, really. It's going to be about postal delivery stuff, isn't it? Anyway, find me over there. Follow. You don't have to connect and all that anymore. Just follow me. And if you want to send me an email, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.